Oh, okay, before I say anything else, try look above the horizon, right in the clouds. You see a little mountain peak right over there? The silhouette. So that's Haleakala of Maui. Valley is one of 7 valleys here on the Big Island, so the rest of the valleys are all tucked away in these cliff sides in front of us that you just can't see from this point of view. Waipio Valley is the largest of the bunch. At the mouth of Waipio here in front of us, it's about 1.5 miles wide at the bay. From the beach, Waipio is 6.5 miles deep into the mountain. So it's a huge valley. We're just simply not going to be able to show everything to you folks today. We're also not going to happen. I'm going to talk about Waipio's history. I like to talk about when this valley was first settled, and then we'll slowly kind of make our way to the present day. We'll talk about the changes and some of the transformations that's happened here in Waipio, so that way basically it'll give you really a better understanding and idea of the valley that we're seeing here today. The valley that you're seeing here today is a much different valley, especially considering the ecosystem and the invasive species that have been brought here. So my job is to hopefully paint a picture of ancient Waipio for you guys. And so what I learned was that this valley, it was one of Hawaii's very first settlements. This valley was settled in over 1,000 years ago. And so the Polynesian voyagers that came and arrived here, they sailed from the South Pacific. So these voyagers, they sailed across the Pacific, not even knowing these islands were here to begin with. They were looking for new life and new land to settle. And so they set sail on their double-hulled outrigger canoes that were built by hand. Even the sails, everything was all built from trees and plant materials. And they didn't have any instrumentation. They didn't have any inclination that these islands were here in the first place. So they were relying on different methods of navigations that they mastered as they migrated from Southeast Asia into those southern Pacific islands. And so things like looking to the stars as a map and a compass, they were very knowledgeable and experts at reading weather patterns. So they were looking at cloud formations, they were able to analyze the distances between the waves approaching their vessels to determine where the smaller and larger storms were. They were even following bird and whale migration patterns. So these guys were tuned in, like I said, with no instrumentation. With you, but normally what you would offer is something of value in yours. So you're not going to get some rotten tangerine and put it on. You're going to get your best mango, or you're going to get your just perfect avocado. You're going to put something of value of yours first to give before you step foot into Waipio, and that's really the mindset there. But anyway, I just like to share that because I think it's important. Here we go. We're going to start driving down this road here. If you look over the ledge in a couple seconds, you're going to make out a couple different things here in the valley. I'm seeing some people walking up the road here. Just to clarify, you're not supposed to be walking on this road. It is illegal for anybody, residents or non-residents. You guys can find that on this too. I don't want you guys to feel cheated as you guys are walking up the road. But just to make that clear. You can see the main river of Waipio right there, the Wailoa River. That river runs the entire length of Waipio, so all 6.5 places, yeah, streams, waterfalls, springs that are feeding into that river. All fresh water, pushing the bay here into the ocean. If you look straight across the valley, you can see a big pond across the way. There used to be one of the ancient fish farms here in White Beaver. And we'll touch on that in a second as well. But while we still have the view, what I really want to do is paint a picture of which was a sacrificial temple. They also had a refuge temple there on the beach. Again, this was a refuge area, a place of refuge. They also had a Honolulu, which was a birthing spot. And so, alongside those temples, they also had their haleba'a. Haleba'a is a canoe hut. And so the canoe huts, to me, was a spectacle, is a spectacle, because it isn't just where they stored. Whose life work was to ceremoniously and ritualistically harvest these hardwood logs from the mountainside and drag them all the way down to the haleba'a on the beach. And then that's where they would start to construct and hollow out and shape these logs into their war canoes. And so I believe that to be one of the more impressive feats of skill and strength, just to get the logs to the beach. Yeah, imagine dragging these logs and somehow getting them down these massive walls and then to the beach. I don't know, it's crazy how they did that, but they did. On both sides of the beach, they had these massive fish farms, specifically here in Waipio. So we pointed out one of the old fish farms already, that big pond across the way. There was also a fish farm very similar in size on our side of the beach. If you look directly below, this is a patch of grass, there's a swamp here. It kind of sticks out. It'll be a little bit easier to see once we come around this corner. That used to be the Lalatiel fish farm. No longer operational, no longer Indian capital. In between those fish farms, they had these smaller fish ponds on both sides of the river. But mainly this area was full of chicken farms and pig farms. And so from that area, moving a couple miles inland from the beach was all agriculture. So I want to share something with you. If you look down and around, all of these trees, all of the weeds, the grasses, all of the plants, the birds. I'm not even joking when I say this. About 90, probably 99% of all of the different varieties of plant and animal species are all introduced. A lot of those are invasive. Meaning that if you were to jump in a time machine and rewind time 250 years ago before Captain Cook arrived, most of the flora and the fauna here would have been native or indigenous. And that'll be very important to talk about later on. But just basically understand that the landscape you're seeing here, the underlying infrastructure of the valley hasn't changed, but the ecosystems growing on it has definitely changed quite a bit. So anyway, it used to be agriculture. So imagine like roads, orchards, gardens, and farms stretching the entire length of the valley across. There wasn't all these trees here before. It was super flat, and it was a bunch of farmlands. And so they had a bunch of groves and orchards full of coconut. That's what we call it here in Hawaii. We call it kalo. So if I say kalo, I'm just referring to the taro. And so anyway, imagine those terraces border to border the whole way across the valley. And so what happened? Where'd all the agriculture go? There was a big tsunami that came and hit this valley back in 1946 on April 1st. They call it the April Fool's tsunami is generated off of the Aleutian Islands of Alaska, like 2,000 miles away, straight off this beach. It was an 8.6 earthquake. The tsunami traveled all the way across the Pacific and just ravaged this whole front half of the valley. So where all the agriculture go, well, the tsunami just destroyed it all. So what you would have seen were just a beautiful, just like, man, like a plateau of farms and stuff here. So anyway, we don't really see that anymore, obviously. Now, this is a bunch of swampland and marshland in this area. So again, the ecosystem has changed quite a bit because of that. If you look around this as well, these valley walls, they offered a huge sense of protection and security for the residents of this place. The Hawaiian society back in ancient times were a warrior society, so essentially, put it this way, white people here, you can grow any kinds of foods all throughout the year. If you lived in a drier climate, like Waikoloa or Kona area, kind of the desert lava fields over there, it's very difficult to grow any types of foods. You can only really grow certain types of food during certain times of the year. And if that was your community during certain times of the year, if you were experiencing drought or famine, that would normally turn into seasons of war. Because you didn't have any other choice other than to pick up your weapons and go fight other clans for your food and for your resources. So if you lived in a place like this, you didn't ever have to go to war. You were in abundance and fertility all year long. So to me, this was like the breadbasket of the island. You know, if you grew up here and lived here in ancient past, then you were pretty much checking all the boxes. You had food and water, protection and security. We call this the Valley of the Kings. So there was also a very strong representation of kings and a very powerful lineage of chiefs and warriors that ruled from this valley as well. So this place was really this, it was the breadbasket of the island. To here, the Wailoa River, a little bit higher today than your average levels. So real quick, Captain Cook, if you guys don't know who that is, it's okay, but he was a British explorer, a British sailor, and he arrived here in Hawaii in 1778. Why is that so significant? Because Captain Cook, believe it or not, for over 1,000 years, Hawaii and its people had not had a single contact from the outside world. So they were isolated here for over 1,000 years until Captain Cook. Captain Cook gets here. Safe to say, he set the precedence for a lot of changes happening here on the islands. You had a lot of economies, plantations, and industries popping up here, which attracted all kinds of different demographics from around the world. So the social structure changed. The Christian missionaries showed up, so there was a huge cultural shift on the islands. None of that really had that much of an impact on the population, though, than the diseases and the sicknesses that were brought over. So you had all of a sudden now things like malaria. Imagine Hawaii without any mosquitoes. Influenza, smallpox, measles, those diseases kind of infiltrated the islands from the sailor boats. And, you know, there was no immunities, there was no remedies, there was no medicine for that kind of thing. So within 100 years of Captain Cook's arrival, over 90% of the indigenous population died off. Within those same 100 years, Waipi'o's population went from over 40,000 down to less than 1,000. That was before photographs were even invented. We fast forward another 60, 70 years to the year of the tsunami. Before the tsunami even hit, the population declined even more, from less than 1,000 down to a few hundred. And then the tsunami hit, and we've been floating around 100. It's really important to talk about the population and stuff, because we're driving through their zone right now. We're basically, think about this being like a whole gated community, and we're driving right through it. We're just gonna go right through this place, right through their backyards and their front yards. And yeah, most of them live across the airport off the road. So our first stop is gonna be to get out over here, so we're gonna be spending a little bit of time in this area. So the waterfall that you're seeing come down They do have things, Kikilabe and Papalaoa waterfalls. horses here a while. There's only like one that I know that's getting broken right now. The myna bird on the back of the horse. So. They might come and say hi, but they're kind of busy. They're like in the mode already. Most of the horses here are wild. There's only like one that I know is getting broken. There's a minor bird on the back of the horse.
Whoa.
They might come and say hi, but they're kind of busy. Very fragile, believe it or not. What are the guy behind you still?
Pretending now. Whoa.
That's why too, yeah. A lot of guys are coming on tour and they like bring carrots and stuff, and I'm like, they don't need that. We feed the horses for us. It's so weird. You think these horses are starving, but no. I promise you that. They're like living like. The you see, the better. We're gonna pass a couple of remnant sites over here. So.
음악가 이뻐.
I'm not too sure. I've seen some pretty big ones. I don't know if that's a species or if that's just a mutant.
There was something in the Mona video.
Oh yeah, the Mona Kia. You see some dragonflies up there?
Yeah, they had a huge dragonfly.
Wow. Yeah, we have a couple different species of dragonflies here. They don't get super big here, but I've seen some pretty monster ones here in the valley. You guys look to the ground right here to our left, these flat stones. They're up here, they go to school up the hill, or they get homeschooled. I prefer, I mean it's not my kids, so I can't really prefer, but I look at people getting homeschooled here as a blessing. Talked about it earlier, yeah. If they go to public school, they're almost getting deprived of education in a way for me. In retrospect, the way I'm looking at it. So if they grow up here, they're actually learning a lot more, and also they're learning a lot more practical stuff here. If they're growing up, their parents are homeschooling them, I guarantee you, their parents are teaching them how to go fishing and hunting and
음악가 저러저러는데.
how to grow food, how to plant fruits, how to plant vegetables. Okay, we're gonna just cruise with the horses today.
I want to touch.
하지만 너네
Kind of looks like.
Yeah, just one.
Just need.
Actually, no. There's two. Out of like 50 though, you know. So all wild. Here's a mama. Yeah. This is mama horse and her baby coming up.
Oh yeah.
She almost looks Hapai again. Hapai is pregnant. Oh, she doesn't want to do anything with us, I don't think. That's okay. Do your thing, girl. I took a person. They're fighting over here. Yeah. You see this darker one right here? Darker one.
Whoa.
They don't need the you call that? The trough. But they're fully just pampered now. It's simply just not needed, but this is the first stream we're gonna cross today. This is Ilave Stream. Now remember, there's only one river here in Waipiro. This is one of the hundreds of streams that feed into this.
Whoa.
The streams are super deep today, so we're not gonna do the whole shebang, but we're gonna do most of it. Do lower strip. So I tried to go through the last one. So not only do you have to wait for the water levels to that little area that we just drove through where the houses were. Basically, you can imagine that as being Napo'opo'o village right over here. So there's a lot of historical sites in this area that we just don't have access to. They're there. So that's the only place on the whole valley floor that's connected to the main grid. That's why you see some power lines over here. There's one more house that gets power over here. So I call this the luxurious side of the valley. You guys have never thought about running electricity as being a luxury. When you come down into a place like this, it absolutely is. Most people who live here, they live off the grid on this side of like in front of us. They run solar systems, maybe have some generators possibly, but most of the time it's just pretty much off the grid. There's some avocado trees doing really well actually. I can see them beautiful avocados here. There's some over here. Root, that's where the vitamin C is. And so they used kalo for food, and because the root has vitamin C, because the root has vitamin C, they avoided scurvy. They made poi out of the kalo root. If you guys have ever seen or heard of poi, people eye. Poi is a pasty food that they processed from the root of kalo. They basically just cook down the kalo, pound it into a pasty food. They added a little bit of water to make it smooth and kind of more, more smooth consistency, and that's your poi. And the poi is what they're storing on their canoes. Kalo has a natural preservative and a natural pesticide. So this natural pesticide was very helpful while you're growing kalo, because you don't have a bunch of animals going into our farms and eating our crops. And then the natural preservative, also the natural pesticide is why they have to cook their kalo for hours and hours on end. We still have to do that today. It's no different. The natural preservative is what allowed the poi to be stored on their canoes without any refrigeration and without any lid. They basically used the gourds as a storage container, put the poi inside, and it would last for over 3 months. Again, to remind you guys, the poi is how they got their vitamin C, and also their iron, their potassium, their manganese, their zinc, their calcium, their carbohydrates. And so the poi was their superfood on their canoes, that is literally what protected them from scurvy and getting sick on those long ways. Here is a very beautiful example of what a traditional lo'i will look like here. Okay, so that's all kalo growing inside this terrace. Kalo is the Waipio Valley is the #1 producer of kalo on the whole island. So you're not gonna see more kalo anywhere else than right here in Waipio, and you're only gonna see maybe like 5%, 10% of all of the lo'i. Same thing. Yeah. It's the Hawaiian name. Yeah. So like, for example, coconut, yeah? In Hawaii, we call it niu. And I use banana, we say mai'a. Yeah. Sweet potato, uala, taro, kalo. So to look inside the terrace, look how the water looks. The water looks kind of stagnant, yeah? So the cool thing about these terraces, when the Hawaiians built them, they purposely built a natural gradient in them. And we're talking like 1 to 3% grade. And so it allows for the water to continuously flow, but it slows the water down to the point where it looks stagnant, but it actually is to drop off the sediment in the water. So basically, these terraces became extensions of the river. And as the water flows in, you can see water coming in. So as it comes in, it slows down. And as it slows down, the sediment in the water, it finally gets a chance to settle to the bottom. If the water moves too fast, it'll just keep carrying the sediment and the nutrients to the ocean eventually. And so they built these extensions from the river to collect the fertilizer, basically. And because of that natural flow, these terraces are naturally getting fertilized every day throughout the year, which is so genius, because as long as you have that water, you're able to continuously use the same farms to plant and harvest. Yeah. So basically, as soon as you harvest this kalo, you can almost immediately replant because there's water coming through the whole time, giving it the fertilizer. There's never a problem with over-fertilization. There's never a problem with too much mud. It usually gets used up by the kalo, and as the water flows in, it is a perfect process. Yeah, pretty much, exactly. So kalo specifically loves floodplains like this. Floodplains generally are much more fertile and the soil is super wet and it's really good. And that's all because of the way the water comes in. And so the Hawaiians, they recognize that the river was where the river was the life source. The water was the life source. And so they were utilizing the natural shape and flow of this water to irrigate into their farms. And not just these farms, they use the same water to irrigate and fertilize the fish farms, the orchards, and the gardens. The fish that they were farming, like milkfish and mullet, bottom feeders. As the water flows into the fish ponds, it coats the bottom with a bunch of algae and plankton, in which the fish would constantly feed on. And as the fish would eat, it would grow, and that food supply never stops, yeah? So basically the water just keeps coming in, keeps fertilizing their kalo for hours and hours on end. We still have to do that today, it's no different. And natural preservative is what allows the poi to be stored on their canoes without any refrigeration and without calcium and carbohydrates. So the poi was for sugar, but it's literally protecting them from scurvy. Kalo growing inside this terrace. Kalo is and that food supply never stops, yeah.
Wow,
So
すごい
basically the
川。
water just keeps coming in,
この
keeps
先すごい
fertilizing,
よ。
keeps coming in,
川が。
keeps fertilizing, keeps coming in, keeps fertilizing. That's literally what it does. We're not gonna cross this river. Too much water. Sorry. I tried to do it last tour and it was above my bumper. That's just not good to do it. We have the snorkels and stuff for my differential, not for my engine. But our second stop is going to be kind of more that way. So we're not going to cross this river. Too much water. Sorry. I tried to do it last tour and it was above my bumper. That's just not good. We have the snorkels and stuff for my differential, but not for my engine. So we're going to just turn around here. But our second stop is going to be kind of more that way. Look, you can actually see the Neve waterfall right there. Was named after a man who used to live here in this valley. He was a pretty special man. He was the child of the shark god. The shark god was very fond of a woman who lived here in the valley. They had a kid together. They gave birth to a half man, half shark. And this man, Ninawe, was born with gills on his back, and he was ridiculed in this community. He looked weird. Everybody was making fun of him. And so he would hide out. He would, through the nighttime, he would swim through the lava tube from the bottom of that waterfall into the channel between us and Maui. He would go to Maui, he would go to Molokai, and he would kind of, honestly, he'd kind of wreak havoc. You know, he'd go hunt people over there and stuff, and then he'd come back and visit his mother at the bottom of that waterfall. And so anyway, they call it Minawi for that reason. This is a pretty cool site. You can see the road that we drove down. We're gonna drive right back up that road on the way out. That's our only way out of here. Drive right back up that road on the way out. That's our only way out of here. So Apollo took about 1 year before we went through Apollo, which is kind of a long time. The Hawaiians are using a lunar calendar. If you look at the map, the real birds here, emojis here, the ones on either side are much more mature. ここ読み込めると動画で読める人や。
はい。
左側に座ってくんね。右は僕が動画撮れるから、左撮れないからさ。
まあそうです。
あの山の
バカでかい山の先にあさっていきます。ちょっと急だよ。
センターラインが怖いから
急だよ。
怖いから嫌だから。うわ、綺麗ね。
ちょっと揺れてきてきた。ここの先にまた右カーブが同じような。すげえ牛がいっぱいいる。
なんで下りはいないんだろうね。
タイミング的に後からついてんのか
みんな午後からお買い物行くのかな。
な。わかんない。よくわかんないね。まあラッキーということで。後からついてんのか
みんな午後からお買い物行くのかな。
な。わかんない。よくわかんないね。まあラッキーということで。1.6キロとこの
こですか？
めっちゃ綺麗。
ここはどこですか？
名前がわかんない。有名なビーチ。
え？
有名な